So Charlotte actually looks like a lot of fun. I don't know how she'll be meta-wise. She looks like she'll be decent in a lot of different roles. I don't think she'll be broken by any means, but let's go over her kit. I'm going to simplify what she does in the simplest terms possible, and then we'll go over some potential team comps and other things like that. So she's another Cryo Catalyst. Now we have two basically within 2 patches. We now finally have 2 Cryo Catalysts. She'll be the first 4-star. Her regular attacks are pretty interesting and unique. She uses her camera and she just takes 3 snaps. Now if you do her charge attack, she'll take a picture from a different angle, but you also have the possibility of hitting the opponent with a Spirit Breath Thorn, which is this right here shown. Now for her skill, it's kind of like Nahida's. You can click it or tap it, and anyone right in front of her will be labeled. And then if you hold her skill, you can actually aim and snap 5 different enemies at a time at C0, and they will be marked, and it'll do continuous cryo damage. Now the duration for this depends on if you tap or hold the skill, but if you hold the skill, the duration will be longer, but the cooldown will also be longer too. I believe it'll be 18 seconds instead of 12 if you hold it, but it'll last longer. The duration will be 6 seconds, but it'll be 12 seconds if you just tap it. So that's not too bad. As for her burst, you can see she summons a big field doing paparazzi, which does continuous cryo damage, and you can actually heal your team, so she has a bit of utility. Now, the upsides to all this are Charlotte scales off her attack for everything, so the healing that you get from her burst is based off her attack, the damage from her skill, all that stuff, so she's going to be at least straightforward to build. There is a bit of a downside though, so essentially when you cast her burst, you'll deal cryo damage and everyone in your party gets healed instantly, and then the active character within that field will get continuously healed more. The only problem is her burst costs 80 energy, has a cooldown of 20 seconds, and has a 4-second duration. That doesn't seem very high, not a lot of uptime, but we'll see how this works in all practicality. It's hard just by reading her skills right now to see how that'll be implemented, but that does seem a little bit low, but definitely not a deal breaker. Now let's go over passives. She has some pretty interesting passives. One interesting passive, just for a fun gameplay aspect, is that instead of having to pull out your camera, I believe you're going to get a special weapon or item in 4.2 in an event where you'll actually be able to just use her skill and take pictures, which will be pretty cool. For other passive, when you mark people with her skill, whether you tap it or hold it, if they die or defeated while they're marked with this, the cooldown will be decreased by 2 seconds. So let's say you're using her skill to help on a freeze comp, and multiple enemies die while they're marked with this while frozen. You'll actually be able to have maybe 100% uptime with her skill, because you'll knock off 2 seconds for each enemy you kill, and you can knock up to 5 enemies, so 10 seconds is a lot when you're talking about cooldowns. And then with her final passive, if you have Fontaine members in your party, 1, 2, or 3, other than herself, she'll gain 5, 10, or 15% healing bonus. But if your party members are not Fontaine, then it's the same 5, 10, or 15% cryo damage bonus. So I'll probably be using her with like Shenhe, maybe Farina or Kokomi for freeze comps and melt comps personally. So I wonder if you have maybe 2 Fontaine characters and 1 non-Fontaine, if you'll get just the 5% cryo damage with a 10% bonus in healing. I believe this is a pretty interesting passive, because this adds a lot of creativity in team comps. You could maybe just go for the full cryo damage bonus, or have a bit of both. It really depends how you want to use her. So go over Constellations real quick. Simply, C1, if her burst heals another character, that character will be marked, and they'll be healed every 2 seconds by 80% of her attack for 6 seconds. So that's not too bad. At least that somewhat compensates for the short duration of her burst. So for her C2, when you actually use her skill and you mark them, it will actually increase your damage or own attack by 10, 20, or 30% for 12 seconds, depending on how many you hit. You can do this up to 3 times, and you can actually mark up to 5 people or 5 enemies, so this is actually pretty good. For C4, when you mark enemies, same way with your skill, you'll actually do 10% more damage and restore 2 energy to Charlotte. This can be triggered 5 times every 20 seconds, so that's actually pretty good. So her Constellations are not bad at all. And finally, for her C6, when an active character's normal and charge attack hits an opponent marked by the frame freezing point composition, so her skill, there'll be initial attack that deals 180% of Charlotte's attack as area of effect cryo damage, so extra cryo damage, and heals active characters within the area of effect for 42% of Charlotte's attack. So you get a little bit of a damage buff, cryo damage, and some heals all at once with C6 if you use a regular attack of another party member when that enemy is tagged with Charlotte's skill. This will be triggered once every 6 seconds, and both damage and healing done this way will be considered to have been done by Charlotte's elemental burst. So it must scale off her burst numbers. That's what I'm gathering. So it's hard to say exactly how this will look. Honestly, I don't think she'll be Constellation dependent by any means. They obviously do help a lot, like any character, but I do think she'll be actually relative at C0. I don't think she's going to be game-changing or game-breaking, but she looks unique and a lot of fun. She has interesting gameplay. She'll have a very interesting attack animations, using her camera as a catalyst user. That looks really fun. I do plan on building her myself and using her with Shenhe and some freeze comps and melt and whatnot. But overall, I think she'll be like a pretty standard 4-star character. She's definitely unique compared to characters we've ever had in the past. As far as building goes, I think, she scales off attack, so some attack, crit rate, and crit damage investment depending on how you want to use her. If she's a support, I personally wouldn't build her relying on her burst because of the duration being so low, but with Constellations, being able to boost her damage, have extra cryo on the field, her cryo application is going to be her best asset as a support, in my opinion, because she's like Nahida, but cryo, you can mark some enemies. You can't mark as many enemies, but she does add significant buffs and healing. I think she'll have pretty solid utility. Her kit's really hard to visualize how well she'll do until she's tested, so like any character, let people test it for you, trial her out, and see if she feels right for you. But on that note, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts. Are you excited for Charlotte? I know she'll be out in a couple days, so you won't have to wait that long, which is nice. I can't wait. I'm definitely going to build this character. Please like and subscribe to support the channel. Help me get in the algorithm again, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Later.